All right. For everyone who doesn't know me, my name is Sheen Trades, and today's video will be intro to basics on Vanna exposure. So some things we'll be getting into are what is Vanna, what to look out for on the chart, how to use it as a magnet or repellent to your advantage, and how to identify potential pinning effects, how to identify accelerant effects. We'll tap into a little bit of the Vanna curve, because I think that's an important thing to take an take an understanding into of when it has its effects, and essentially how you can recognize the Vanna curve on the chart. So let's jump right into it. So what is Vanna? So um similar to similar to gamma, right? It has its effects on delta, but instead of focusing on the effects of the underlying movement, what Vanna focuses on is the implied volatility. So it's the sensitivity of an options delta with respect to changes in IV or volatility. So mouthful, right? Let's break it down a little bit and why essentially, I guess let's talk about the short windows of weakness that people kind of that you have to pay attention to when it comes to Vanna. Um, this is the main one here, right? So this is why I've been stressing. So if you were in the live stream today on Twitch, you would have seen me stress Vanna was important today, right? I use Vanna more so rather than Charm. Charm is more like an aggregate view of like whether or not dealers are bearish or bullish. But in terms of Vanna, you can get more of an exact point of view of when they need to hedge and whatnot. So since it's week 3 coming into OPEX right now this Friday, excuse me. Since it's week 3 coming into OPEX this Friday, I've been watching the OPEX data and playing to that rather than on a day-to-day basis. So getting into sort of like the window of strength and the window of weakness, this is why I've been watching it very closely. After OPEX, then I go back to kind of just sticking with gamma rather than anything else. I think it's just easier that way, less noise. But when it comes to like OPEX week, I watch more so for Vanna rather than gamma. But that's why you see me paying attention to it, and that was the reason. So getting into the other parts of Vanna is what to look out for. I think it's actually very important to talk about the Vanna curve itself before, so I think that's something I'm going to bring up right now. Vanna's curve is a little bit different than Gamma. Obviously, Gamma was like this, right? We kind of saw it like this, right? And then you have Gamma's effects are highest right at the money or most impactful at the money, right? Right here, rather than out the money or in the money. It's just most effective at the money. So getting into Vanna, Vanna is not the same thing. Vanna is very, very different. The reason I talk, and the curve is more like this, like that. Okay. And this is, let's pretend this is at the money. Pretend that's a straight line. Right. So as you can tell, Vanna is most effective slightly out the money or slightly in the money. And how that works is its peaks are right here. Vanna peaks when the delta is of the options contract is at a 0.2. Right? That is sort of that's a really ugly two. But anyway, beside the point. But yeah, Vanna peaks when delta is at 0.2. So that's when its effects become more, how do I put it, more noticeable. So in the morning, you already heard me saying, okay, well, we'll get into that a little bit more. That's not entirely the main focus of today because I need to leave something for Thursday. Actually, Vanna, this could honestly just go into Thursday as well because it's a lot, right? I don't really care that people learn what Vanna is essentially. I want people to learn how to use the chart itself, right? Because what's the point in like knowing what it is if you still can't read the damn chart? Right, because that's why everyone's here at the end of the day. It's like, how the hell do I utilize the data on the dashboard? So, there's important aspects of this as to why it works. When it's at a 0.2 delta or negative 0.2 delta, this is the peak. So that's why you see 4,600 being so big, right? in that sense. So if you zoom out, so a lot of these don't really matter all that much, but I bet you the 4,600 call or put right out of the money for Friday. Let me check. Let me pull up the options chain delta right now for that. Just out of curiosity, and this is why I was watching it, and that's what I tweeted out today on the account. So if we go to December 15th, that's the 14th, 15th, 4,600 put. Still scrolling, Jesus Christ. The delta on these are right at 0.18. Whoa. Whoa. That can't be. That can't be. What have I been watching? 4,600 positive on a below. Whoa. Not like it's a dang mystery, guys. I talk about it a lot to the public. So with the delta being at negative 0.18, what does this show, right? Leading up into OPEX, what happens to overall volatility, guys? Volatility overall, as you lead up to OPEX, starts to increase. For those who are here and don't think that's true, you can correct me if you feel that that's wrong. But from my experience leading up into OPEX, the options chain is always more expensive on OPEX. So, with that being said, overall volatility increases as you get to OPEX, and what happens? Let's talk about this. So we have a positive, right? Below spot. And then we have overall volatility increasing. So when you have positive on a below spot price and IV increasing as you get closer to that, it starts to magnetize. Meaning, as you push up, dealers are going to sell right around this area. Hence why, and now we get into how you can correlate that, right? I'll show you guys how to essentially read whether or not dealers are going to sell. I just pointed at my computer as if you can see what I'm talking about. But I'll talk about why dealers will have to sell as you push up to this point. Then the best part is, or how to identify that. The next thing that lines up is, okay, we have a big 4650. Yeah, 4650 wall, right? So now you have on Gamma. So now you have two different things playing against you, right? You have positive exposure at 4650, right? Right here, coming onto OPEX. And guess what? You have positive exposure as a wall, and we talked about this last week's class. As you approach positive exposure from below spot, right? If it's positive exposure above spot price, it will act like resistance. And you also have 4650 selling. So I think 4650 will be hard to get over. That is my take until Friday. I think 4650 will be very hard to get over. However, obviously we have a lot of different dealer positioning things coming in, or not deal. We have a lot of different data this week, right? We have J Powell tomorrow. So just keep that in mind. Based on dealer positioning and understanding the data is like 4650 might be hard to get over, right? Because if volatility is increasing and it's positive below, this will magnetize, right? Magnet. Then you also have 4650 wall right here on OPEX data. So keep in mind, this is also for Friday still. So it's not as effective to look at date by date, but it's also and that's why we're going to be implementing in the new V3 update, which is aggregate view, where you can now clump up December 12th all the way to 15th data. But this is essentially what goes through my head is when I'm looking at these things is like, okay, what lines up with what? So out of me being such a sweet person, guys, I made a chart for you guys. Did I just flashbang everyone with a very white screen? Yeah, you're welcome. But this is essentially what I have created based off of my knowledge and how it affects fawn exposure. Someone made a flowchart earlier to the Discord. Oh, I have no idea on it. It's really bad, but I don't check the Discord all that often. There's this very specific reason for that, though. Holy balls, that's a lot. Okay, thank you. I'm looking at it right now. Is a strike above or below spot price? If you decrease, I mean, who made this? Do we know by chance? Is there anyone? Liquidos, do we know the specific person who made that? I did. Okay. IV, let me make sure it lines up with mine. So if it's below, if it's negative on or below, right? Negative below, IV decrease. So it's this one. It's price magnet. Interesting. Oh, wow, this guy made a pretty nice one. So far matching one of them. Um, IV increase, price repel. Yeah, these are opposite. Dealers buy. Yeah, that's pretty good for the first set. Yeah, you can use whichever one, guys, however you like it. Um, this is just what I managed to create based off of what I was reading and my knowledge to it. So this is kind of what I use on a daily basis because this is a lot to remember. If you were to ask me to tell you what's going to happen without looking at this thing, couldn't tell you. So even me, I don't remember it. I know what it does. There's a big difference. All right. So that's the big one. God damn. Um, this is the main one that I wanted to show everyone is like how, and then I want to get into like what did I talk about today? With Vanna, there is no specific amount because as you can tell, that number is fat as hell. You feel me? This number is thick. Um, but actually that doesn't make sense to me, that number, but I don't really ever look at the aggregate like total number. You can kind of just look at the aggregate amount in terms of where the money is. A split view. So the thing is with positive is like, or from what I've always understood about it is that we tend to gravitate towards positive. Not always the case though, because of volatility changes, right? But then that's why this was created, was because now you can read IV and the ways to read IV. All right, we have multiple ways of reading IV. You have VIX, number one. You can take, if you're trading SPX or SPY, which all of us are, you can take VIX, right? Overall, as you can see, I don't know about you, but I nailed that shit this morning. I said IV is going to decrease all the way until power hour, and then power hour will probably see IV pump. Boom. But that's why, and understanding that is like you can use VIX, you can use the options chain just by like taking like little glimpses or peeks at it in the sense of like, okay, at 1 o'clock or sorry, at 8 a.m. it was this, at 9 a.m. it was this, at 10 a.m. it was this. Okay, but and the standard of volatility, guys, the basic standard of understanding volatility, when the market opens, it is always going to be high. So what happens when it's too high? It's got to drop down. Right. So it'll start slowly bleeding throughout the day. That's majority of the time. Um, and then power hour picks up again. That's overall how volatility is going to work. Which is why I'm not a huge fan of looking at VIX specifically. Because VIX kind of moves in like an inverted way with the market. So it's not the best way of visualizing it. And Gio and I have talked about this multiple times. And that's why we'll be not implementing, but creating some sort of a volatility module where people can kind of visualize it a better way. So with that being said, that's something that we are also working on. But continuing forward, you can use VIX. I personally don't suggest it. I think using the options chain is much more reliable. The next one is you can take the average of this. Like I would just take the low point and just manage to see where the low point is. If that makes sense, guys. So like just take the overall number on the side. Volatility is at an average of 42. Okay, by tomorrow, what's it going to be in the morning, right? And that, sort of get a gauge of that. This is also, keep in mind, just this is an aggregate view, but if I take, oh, that's an invalid date. We need the 13th now. So looking at this data for tomorrow, we have a bunch more, right? 4,600 still in play here. Now, if you want to take a look, right? If you guys have your options chain open, you can look at tomorrow's expiration. And then I need to change. I have so many strikes. Jesus. We'll do 25 strikes. Is that enough? So let's take tomorrow, 4,600 put. Delta, not enough. So with that being said, 4,600 may not play a big enough role, right? Looking into tomorrow. Yeah, VIX is just a good historical record. I wouldn't utilize it on a day-to-day basis. So it's like a 30-day thing, I think, if I remember correctly. So it seems to be the peak right now is 46.20 on on not charm on Vanna in terms of the strike being at or the delta of the strike being at 0.2, 46.20. So 46.20. When I look at this and I see this 46.20, it's not very effective in terms of how small it is. So let's look at the next one, 46.25. What is this looking like? The delta is negative 0.25. Once again, not near it's close to the peak, but it isn't the peak, so not as effective. However, the more you stray away from it, so let's say we slowly push up a little bit, obviously the option is going to get more far out the money. And then with that being said, what happens is it creates a different effect. Right, since it's more far out of the money, that delta is going to slowly drop. So as it goes further and further out of the money and it hits that peak, what happens is that'll start taking an effect. You have positive below, then you need to understand the volatility, right? So just when you're looking at this, that's the biggest thing, right? Because once again, I want to specify it's like I could care less if you know exactly what Vanna is, but I want to make sure that you guys understand how to read the chart, right? Because reading the chart is going to be way more important than understanding what it actually does. In my on a day-to-day basis, if that makes sense, guys. I'm not saying like you shouldn't understand it, but obviously everyone's question is always everyone's begging question is how do I read the damn chart? So that's what we're kind of going over today. So if I'm gonna pull up some historical screenshots that we have SPX Fauna and what did I talk about today? I think I started the stream at like 8:30 or 8 o'clock ish. So we're gonna break down what I said today because that was like I hope Primothy's here, but I know we have a couple people that were watching the stream that knew exactly what I was talking about. Um 46:27-ish, that's around where we were, around 8 o'clock, right? Yeah. So we'll just take 8 o'clock one. So let's snag a screenshot, talk about what I saw because the analysis was to a T and it worked out very, very well and worked exactly as planned. So when looking at total Lana here, let's talk about it. We have a negative, it's really ugly, and this is really small. So we had a negative above spot. Excuse me. Um, the reason why this one had me interested more so than this one was because overall we've been bullish, so I care about this one. And also in the sense of I remember the delta wasn't I looked at the delta for this one. It was at like 0.15 when it was 30 out the money. This one was closer to point like 23 or something like that. So I figured we're gonna pull further and further out the money, meaning this delta is already like useless now. It's gone through that peak already on the other side, right? So it's more so like along here, right? It's on that side. So if we move further, if spot price goes up more, what happens? This one starts falling off even more towards this side. So to me, this one was negligible unless we started to revert back down. So that's what I was paying closer attention to, and why I can't even click the button at the top. Sorry, 1 second. Gotta put it like this. Drag this out here. Drag this out this way. All right, so that's why I didn't care so much about this side. So now I was watching this one. It's because that peak was more it was closer to the peak, and as we move closer to it, it was going to get closer to the peak a little bit more. So continuing forward, I talked about how we had negative under spot, right? Neg under spot. So looking at neg under spot, what happens when we have negative fauna, sorry, negative above spot. I apologize, negative above spot price. And I said, as this is 8 o'clock during the day, and I said, okay, volatility is going to decrease right now, right? We're already past that morning side, so it's going to decrease as you get closer and closer to expiration until power hour. Why? Because the standard is normally in power hour, volatility picks back up in terms of the implied volatility. So I said this is going to be a repellent until, so this will repel unless volatility picks up. So repel as volatility goes down, right? Vol goes down. So we're not going to push up very hard until power hour, right? So then during power hour, it would become a magnet, right? It would flip because volatility starts increasing, right? Because the vol goes up. So if you look at the chart from today, power hour right here, big spike. We're already slowly pushing up, but from my understanding is volatility will start to increase and it became a magnet and started pulling it towards it, right? This is why I was watching the Vanna so closely. It's because once again, the window of strength, it's that week. So that's why I'm watching it much closer. So when you're looking at something like this, it's like, okay, volatility is going to start picking up after, around, usually from my understanding and my experience is like 10 o'clock volatility starts to increase. You have from like 9 o'clock to 10 o'clock where it takes a shit, and then 10 o'clock to 11 o'clock to 12 o'clock, it slowly starts picking back up. And 12 o'clock is when it hits sort of like that peak time. So understanding that is like, okay, let's draw it out. We have volatility up here, and then it'll start declining about 10:30. It'll start picking up and scooping up and scooping up. Yeah, Pacific, sorry. I'm on West Coast. I'm in LA. Right. So you have volatility right here. 10 o'clock is 1 p.m. Eastern. So, and that's what I was watching. It's like, okay, we will compress essentially right around this area and be pinned, because the second thing to take note of is also, yeah, this one's out of here. Or where did the screenshot go? Oh, it's not here. There. This one. This one as well is negative under, right? So if it's negative on a below, and sorry, if it's negative below, right? The other thing to take into account is that it will essentially, oh, sorry. Yeah, wait, yeah, negative below. And if IV increases, what also happens? Oh, shoot, positive below, man. Since it's positive below, okay, pause below. Bro, I need a Zin. I need that Zin. Zinachino, Zimbabwe, Osama Zin Lagan. Um, but continuing, it's positive below. And if it's positive on a below, as IV decreases, what happens throughout that same period? It's this side is repelling at 8 a.m. If IV decreases, so vol goes down, what happens? This is still acting as a repellent as vol goes down, right? So this is also pushing price up while this is pushing price down, which is why I thought it was going to be a pin until guess what? Volatility picked up, right? That's when the curve matters. It's like, okay, which one's going to take more of an effect? And that's when you can open up your options book and look for whichever one has a 0.2 delta or is closer to 0.2. And if you have to take into consideration, if it's at 0.15 and we're moving away from it and it's this side, right? It's a 4600 put. What happens? That delta is going to get smaller and smaller as we push up, right? This one, if it's at 0.15 and we push up, the delta is going to get increasingly larger, right? So, and that's just the way contracts work. If you look at a call, as you get closer and closer at the money, the delta goes up. So if we get further out the money with a put and get closer at the money with a call, the delta on the call is going to increase, especially if they're the same thing. So if they're both at 0.15, right? Negative 0.15, one's going to drop to negative 0.1, while the other one goes up to 0.2 or 0.25, whatever the case is. But that's why I was watching this 4650 more closely. Right? Does that make sense so far, guys? I know it's a lot to take in because you're watching so many you're looking at so many moving parts and you're taking into consideration everything. But I feel like the way I'm explaining it is breaking it really down as much to the basics as I can and using terms that people can understand. That's a big one. But so far so good. You guys getting the hang of it, kind of understanding it. Yeah, I mean, it's because there's no other way to visualize the delta, right? Other than viewing the contract itself. It's kind of kind of what you have to watch, sadly, but it is what it is. Um, but that's what I was watching this morning, and that's exactly how it played out. And I'm still waiting for Gio to give me that freaking recording so I can post it because that was a banger ass viewpoint. you ask me. Maybe because I'm biased and I made it and I was right, but still. That was analysis in real time. I don't even know. Yeah, perfect. That's how I want to hear it. I don't even know what it isn't. All right. But yeah, so that's like the basic breakdown. So far we've kind of gone over everything so far of like, okay, how do I read it with standard vol or VIX? VIX, honestly, wouldn't even bother watching, but that is an option. Vonna curve we talked about. How to identify an accelerant effect. That one's the one that we had talked about. Okay, I'll get to that one. So we talked about pinning, we talked about magnet and repellent and what to look out for. We talked about what it is. Okay, so next one is the accelerant effect. So there's one specific situation that you need to watch out for is when negative VANA is passed over, it creates an accelerant effect if IV continues to drop, right? Let's write that out. Accelerant. Oh, that's completely, I can't spell. ACCEL. I'm stuck now, guys. I think it's one L. I don't want to embarrass myself, but we're sticking with one L. Accelerant effect. Accelerant effect, right? What happens? What is necessary? What is necessary, right? That is when negative VANA is passed over. So when you have negative neg VANA pass over, right? Pass over. When you pass over negative VANA, what's the next thing that's needed? Now you need IV to continuously drop. So situations to watch out for. Obviously, we all know what the standard is in terms of how volatility moves intraday is that it spikes in the early morning and it'll slowly bleed out until power hour, 10:30, 11 o'clock-ish, right? That's when it'll start to pick up. The next thing is, but so when you're looking at this, let's say you are pushing up, right? You have a bar here, negative over, right? Let's say you pass through it during that bleed time. Oh, whoa, whoa. During that bleed time, you pass over it. Guess what happens, guys? That stock may rocket. It may continuously push up. It'll create an accelerant effect where dealers are playing with the move, right? So if they're buying up, passing over it, what happens is dealers are going to end up buying with the move and accelerating that move up, right? This is the same if it's going down. Sorry, this drawing thing or this eraser sucks. There we go. Right. So what happens when it's or under? You pass through during a bleeding time. Guess what? Accelerant effect. They're gonna sell with the move. So these are just things to watch out for intraday wise because that's when it can get real shiesty. You feel me? You might get shiesty out here. But that's essentially like the cool thing to watch out for, right? Just little things. So both IV drops even going downward. Yes. Yes. Yeah, that's when IV is decreasing when you pass over it. And it'll become an accelerant effect. All right. Question time. I've been rambling for 29 minutes or 30 minutes now on the dot. So this is Vanna on Vanna. Today's all about Vanna. Tomorrow and next class also all about Vanna. We're going to talk about because I think prep. So for next class, my idea is prepping for OPEX. Like, okay, let me give you some OPEX analysis and why. I think that's important. Because then understanding how volatility works and moves with OPEX is always going to be a huge effect. So Vanna flips. Um, Vanna flips are very similar to gamma flips in the sense of, okay, that's going to be like support or resistance. That's typically how I use it, just to confirm. And yeah, that's typically how I utilize it. Basically, you're looking at if it is going to hold the support when passing through, kind of. Just to confirm, 0.2 delta, that is 20 delta in the option chain, right? Yeah. 0.2 delta is going to be 20. On the option chain, it's written as 0.2, but it's just 20 delta. That just means it's a 20 delta. Guys, if you haven't watched that one class or the two classes from before, I really suggest you watch it So I know we have a couple of people who are joining today rather than the other two classes. So that's I really suggest you watch those two classes. I think they're going to immensely already change the way you view the market. And it's why I love this data. It's like it's you don't need to prep the night before. You can do analysis, but not like the way you used to back then. Like I remember when I first started trading, it's like, oh, if we break above like tomorrow's watch list is X price, so if we can break above that, then we'll go to the next resistance. Like you have to plan for that, but you don't really know why it's moving like that, right? This is the why. It's the interesting portion of like how you can take advantage of market flow, right? This is true market flow. Unusual options flow, that's flow, but it's not true market flow. Yeah, see, that's the thing is like when you do that type of thing is like, yeah, I mean, you have homework and other discords or like quizzes, dude. I could care less because at the end of the day, if you want to learn this and utilize this, then that's up to you. They're posted on our YouTube. Um, what if there's no negative on in general? Then you just play to what's on the screen, right? That's what I do. I don't really look for what's not there, if that makes sense. YouTube. I just typed in YouTube trader link. Yeah, exactly. That's remember. Where's this? Everyone knows me as the guy who loves Zen. No one knows me as the guy who helps everyone trade. That's crazy, man. Shit stuff out here, man. Everyone asks, how's the Zen? No one asks, how do you feel? It's tough. Man, Copenhagen. I'm gonna stop this recording because we have all the good info now. So